Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John. I have to double check this. This is episode 323. Holy cow, that's a lot of episodes. It was nice to see this week. I finally got 70,000 subscribers. Again, it'd be great if you listen to subscribe. I don't know why it helps, but that's what it says. Like, subscribe, and tell your friends. I love doing this podcast. Each and every week I sit down and I answer your questions. And my demographics report from YouTube is always pretty interesting to look at. So if you have a question, please send them to podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. We have a real mix of questions today, and let's get started. So our first question, and this name, if you've been listening for a while, you know it's coming, is lovely. This is a question from Daniel. And Daniel says, I have recently changed from full depth deadlifts to 3/4 range, and I like it, whether going heavy weights or going light. What is the downside, if any, for using 3/4 range? For those of you who pay attention a lot, there's two questions. What do you mean by 3/4? I'm going to guess you mean elevated versus deficit, but I'll talk about both in the answer. For your information, he's 62 years old, 200 pounds, 70 inches tall, lifelong weight trainer, building muscle mass to meet the demands of 3 grandsons. It's kind of funny. I'm a little bit older than you, a little bit lighter than you, a little bit taller than you, and I have 5 grandchildren. I have Danny, Josephine, Daisy, and of course Leo and Elwyn. So we're close here in a lot of things. You know, I have a program I like a lot. Now, I called it the post-deployment program because I set this up a long time ago for we call them Tier 1, but for a Special Forces group, and lots and lots of problems after deployment. So I put together a program to give them a 3-month, some hypertrophy, some mobility, some loaded carry, some original strength. And we whipped it into a thing that was called the post-deployment. But if you go to my site now, I think it's called the hypertrophy and mobility workout. And one of the things I really began to appreciate with people who have been really in tough situations, by the way, this is the group that sent me a bunch of pictures from them in action. And the joke became the only thing the thing I teach, I teach loaded carries all the time. And their basic point was, that's all they do for a living is loaded carries. I thought that was kind of funny, carrying gasoline for helicopters and, these remote locations, carrying ammo here, carrying ammo there, loaded carries. But one of the things I emphasize with anybody, in fact, gentle listener, gosh, if you're over 22, think about this. But it's rack deadlifts, and what you call 3/4 and what I call rack deadlifts, don't worry about them. But basically, you set the bar either with boxes or the word plinths used to be used, but I haven't seen that in a long time, or off of a rack, so that the barbell is either 1 inch above the bent knee or on your patella tendons, about 1 inch below. If you don't know what to do 3 months of 1 inch above and 3 months of 1 inch below. Really easy for most people to learn how to hinge. I'm a big believer in rack deadlifts to stick the chin out and stick the butt back and just make yourself hinge, like a crane, like we used to have at EH Bean Trucking and Rigging in Redwood City. You just want to yourself up. And it was funny because in the first month there was in the workouts, there is one set of 25. Now, rack deadlifts, a set of 25 rack deadlifts is feasible. For a lot of people doing them from the floor, it would be put them in traction. So obviously I'm a big fan, and I like it because there's no real great reason that the barbell is the height that is on the floor. That's the history. That's why it's there. It was probably a good height back in the 1930s when that height was good, but now it's way too low for most athletes. If you're doing the opposite thing, which is deficit deadlifts, and instead of you put in the weight up on the box, you put your feet on the box, I'm actually a big fan of those too. When I do deficit deadlifts, I try to do them swing hingey style. So if I have a weight here, I'm using a kettlebell example because I don't know how else you would do. I guess you could do it with dumbbells or machines, I guess. But as I go down, I stick my chin out and I push the bar back towards my heels as I'm doing them to ensure I'm getting more of a hamstring stretch. Now, as I was thinking about this today, it got me thinking too about, something that came up when I was at Utah State. Coach Mon was a real believer in what he called quarter squats. It was interesting when I asked him about weightlifting, he believed the best exercises for throwers, we used to call it the kneader press. It is basically a standing bench press where you hit the weights real hard and it bounces and you pull it back. Supposedly invented by Bill Kneader. I think he was a 1960s Olympic shot put champ. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. The other one was the power curl, basically a power clean with a curl grip. He loved the idea. We had this 110-pound bar that was from the dark ages. This thing was just a hunk of metal with hands. And he liked us to see how far we could throw it because it taught us how to use our legs and upper body in conjunction. And the last exercise was quarter squats. And one time I was asking him because, coming from Dick Nottmeyer and the Olympic lifting background, Jim Schmitz, we were always dropping deep into the ground. It was interesting because it was one of those great moments where I was getting stuck in either or versus both and. So for those of you who like to go deep on things like the goblet squat, the overhead squat, the double kettlebell front squat, most people tend to be able to go deep on those. Back squats, some of the stuff I see online, it looks like a good morning, not a squat. But so Coach Mon's thought was we throw from that quarter squat position, but there are benefits of going deep. At the time, we didn't have the goblet squat. Someone needed to invent that later. But for those of you listening, you got to get yourself out of this idea that like rack squats are good and deficit deadlifts are rack deadlifts are good and deficit deadlifts are bad. Both have value. Both have great value. How you program them is the key in how you keep going. So, I never really used quarter squats as a coach because in my own case, I got up to weights in the quarter squat that honestly, I was starting to worry about my structure. And I'm not sure it really helped so much. Now, I was just with my good friend Eric Subert, and Eric, his bottom position and the way he could stand up with anything was incredible. But when we use quarter squats, he could out squat me, but I could out quarter squat him. So a lot of it's how you're lined up. So if you're me, and wouldn't it be great if you were? No. If you're me, I would get a lot of value if I could go back in time, which I haven't yet figured out. I would tell little Danny John to do goblet squats, overhead squats, and quarter squats, and mix and match them as appropriate. So to answer the big question, I don't think you lose anything by working at different heights, different lengths, or different challenges. What I would worry about for a lot of us is getting the idea that there's only 3 lifts, there's only 5 lifts, and that you have to do them and nothing else the rest of your career. And you're 62, after say age 25, certainly after age 35, so I do this thing called progressive resistance exercise. Load is the obvious one. You do 100 pounds this month, 110 next month, 120 the month after. You do 6 reps with it 1 week, you do 7 the next, you do 8 the third, you do 2 sets, and then you do 3 sets. But the other part of progression is moving up from very simple exercises like the plank family to the traditional bodybuilding exercises to maybe some, one-handed exercises to maybe ballistic exercises. So in my example from my matrix, I would say you would do push-up position planks, then you do push-ups, then you do bench press, then you do one-arm overhead press, then you do push jerk or push press. There, boom, 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 boom. You're progressing through the exercises. Then after that, you can play around with variations on the overhead work. You can play around with variations. So that, to me, Daniel's the key. You constantly want to be doing the summary of everything I've said, the same but different. Little small tweaks over time, and just keep coming back into the gym. And it seems like you're already doing that. So keep it up. And that was a fun question. So thank you. Our next question comes from Andrew. And I love the opening line. I have recently somehow turned 40. I still think there's been a mistake. But regardless, I started taking my general fitness a bit more seriously for the past year and a half. I am just finishing your armor building formula with the double 20s. Good for you. That's solid. And I'd like to do more structured mobility work. In your previous podcast, you mentioned you do bodybuilding 3 times a week and that you do original strength movements between sets. I was wondering if you could expand on that and maybe how to incorporate original strength into armor building formula to a large degree. I have Tim Anderson's book and I did follow you along a few times, but making it work all together, now that's where things get tough, has eluded me for some reason. Doesn't help that the book doesn't really have the programs, and I'm not that experienced to make my own program. I'm not sure which book failed you on not having programs, and if it's my fault, I'm sorry, and if it's Tim's fault, blame Tim. Okay. So, yeah, I have a basic rule, and this is the problem you're going to have with the armor building formula a little bit. So whenever I do a push exercise, I tend to do a variation of neck nods, okay? Eyes leading, tongue in the roof of the mouth, either prone or on the rocking 6-point position, even the commando or 8-point position, or just sitting in a chair, or sometimes just standing there. For anytime, I always marry the pull family, no matter what it is, with neck rotations, and it can be prone, find your shoes. It could be rocking, find your shoes. Or here in the chair, I can just do seated twisties, okay? For squats, that's the easy one. 6-point rocks, rocking. That's really good. And rocking has a lot of their variations, and you can explore those with Tim's videos or just by reading his books. With the hinge family, now there's 2 exercises I like to combine it with. The first is the bird dog, and then its cousin, the speed skater, or what we call in my gym, frozones. So a bird dog is with the hand extended in the bird dog position. A speed skater is when the hand is back, very much like your gait pattern, G-A-I-T pattern. So when I'm doing hinge work in my normal training, between sets, I have an exercise called marching frozones, where I do the speed skater and I snap and I walk around a lot like that. It looks goofy as hell, but I love it. And then of course for loaded carries, I always mix them with cross crawls. Cross crawl, right hand hitting my left knee, left hand hitting my right knee. You can do it seated, you can do it on the floor, or you can do it like I do, is I do it as an active high-speed walk. And then I have a variation where I step, try to almost grab the knee with the hand, and while I'm doing that, I try to find my trailing hand with my eyes. I learned how to do that in a pool, and now I try to do it when I walk. Okay, there's the basics. Step 2, and this is just a general intro into the answer. I think 1 day a week should be a tonic day. Tune your body, and I spend an hour with, today we had Erica, we had Mike, we had TJ, and we spent an hour going through all the original strength work that we can think of, plus some other small things. We do the on the ground stuff, we do the seated stuff, we do the rocking, the prone, we do the rolls, we do the egg rolls, we do everything we can think of. Now, with the armor building formula, a day that works probably better for marrying it with original strength would be the high level press day, the day we're doing the presses. Now, because you're just doing presses that day, we can change the rules a little bit. The best way I know how to incorporate original strength is by saying, okay, there's 5 basic things, okay? Neck nods, neck rotations, the rocks, the frozones, the bird dogs, and the cross crawling. Obviously, breathing is a factor there too, but let's just hold that. One great way to do this on the days you're doing the ABC, the armor building complex, is that your warm-up is 2 minutes of neck nods, prone neck nods, okay? 2 minutes of find your shoes in the prone position. 2 minutes of rocking. Now, I'm going to say 2 minutes of frozones, and it sounds easy until you do 2 minutes of frozones. And then either marching in place or walking like I do, the cross crawls for 2 minutes. Folks, those last 2, that's a lot of work. You will be warmed up. I can guarantee it. There is another option where you could break your say like you're going for, since there's 5 movements, let's say you're doing 20 rounds. You could do 4 rounds of armor building complex neck nod, 4 rounds of armor building complex, your rotations, 4 rounds, you're getting the point, right? I can keep going, I guess. 4 rounds of armor building complex, 6-point rocks, 4 rounds of armor building complex, frozones, 4 rounds of armor building complex cross crawl. I got to tell you from the heart, after going over that out loud, that's a really good idea. And I think there's real value to it. For those who've never done some of these original strength movements, some of the movements are very tonic. They tune you up. Tonic and tune, same root. Some of the movements, your tongue will drop out of your mouth. You'll all of a sudden, you'll start to break down, indicating that you're tapped out and you need to stop, which is a real value. It's always nice to have I think it's called a regulator, the thing you have on a golf cart that slows you down from going too fast in it. A governor. So the tongue dropping out of your mouth and mouth breathing are signs that you're tapped out and it's time to move on. In the situation I'm in, I just finished my 4th pro reset with Tim and his gang. 1 in Las Vegas, 2 in North Carolina, and 1 in Australia. And the more I do this stuff, the more I learn, the more I'm beginning to really understand that the original strength work is not just mobility, but it's strength work, especially reflexive strength, which I'm finally really getting an understanding of. So I think it's the best way to get mobility for most of us, especially those of us who have somehow turned 40. But try those ideas. And I would recommend, Andrew, that you try maybe each one of them. Give yourself 2 to 4 weeks to kind of practice each idea. And then maybe you'll step back at the end of those 4 weeks and say, I like doing it this way. Maybe you like doing the original strength in the warm-up. Some of us, myself, I like to do the original strength sprinkled in between sets because it just seems to get me back where I need to be. And of course, I'd also recommend always 1 day a week doing an extended group, and I do have the videos here on my YouTube site. Try the different ideas and get a sense of things. And I would like you to get back to me and tell me how it goes and which one you chose. And another great answer is all of the above. Okay, thank you. Fun question. Hey, we got a question from Ryan. And Ryan says this. I started off with kettlebells last year and now I've progressed to having barbells and a squat rack at home. Man, that's kind of fun. I'm a 35-year-old special education teacher. And Ryan, hats off to you and thank you for all you do. My good friend Eric Subert, who I just saw, he was my training partner, junior world team member in Olympic lifting, and just a great man. He did that for a career. And my sister did too, by the way. And you guys make a difference, and I wish we would support what you do better. I feel that working out in the mornings makes me feel energized and sharp for the day. At the same time, I like to have my time with barbell lifts, and it's challenging to fit everything in before work. When school returns, I'm considering a program where I do mobility and kettlebell conditioning work early before work. I like this idea. And some barbell work in the evenings when I get home, maybe just one lift per day. I have no idea what makes sense in terms of programming. Well, first off, the idea of working out twice a day, I think there's value to it. I've trained in my career, obviously, 2, 3. I remember we used to have this challenge where we try to throw 1,000 times the discus, 1,000 discus throws a day, not on the walls. And of course, it took many sessions to get that done. We do that. I didn't do it too many times because it's boring. But training multiple times a day has great value. Let me just give you a program, an idea first. I like your idea. I like the idea of maybe you picking. Honestly, I think the armor building formula in the morning and mixed with your idea of one lift a day in the afternoon is excellent. In the new armor building formula book, so there's 2 versions. There's the first one, which just explains everything. It's a good program, nothing to add. There's nothing wrong with it. And then the additional insights with snatches, rows, pull-ups. Can I do this? Can I do that? Those all the questions you guys have been asking for a long time. In the books, I do talk about combining easy strength with the ABF. Your question, and of course this is why I need to write another book, is armor building formula with one lift a day. I think it would go well. I don't know if you... So I'm going to stick to what you said, though I'd love to see you have a Saturday workout in there too, but we'll worry about that in a minute. But, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's either the high presses, the high volume presses or the ABC, but, maybe condense it down a little bit, okay? Maybe you could do, in a week, I don't know what day is the hardest day for you, but I'm just guessing usually for most teachers it's Monday. But maybe Monday you go 10 rounds. If you're lifting on a Monday, you go 10 rounds of the ABC. If you're lifting on, if you're doing the ABC on a Friday, maybe 15 rounds. And if you're doing the ABC on a Wednesday, then you go maybe higher, 20 to 30. And then just do the presses as appropriate and you'll be fine. I would say maybe do some goblet squats, do anything else that you like to do on those days. Any kettlebell exercises, maybe add a little mobility work between rounds. Again, we've been talking about original strength this whole podcast so far. And then in the evening, whatever those exercises you're going to choose for the one lift a day, you do them. You have a squat rack and a bench. Please never bench press hard at home by yourself, ever. Don't ever do it. But, I could see you doing front squats on Monday, cleans on Tuesday, overhead press on Wednesday, obviously. Thursday I would just take Thursdays off because that's what I always think. And then Friday, whatever you think you're missing. That could be, maybe it's a row family, it's a deadlift, it's whatever you feel like you need the mishmash in there, do it. And then on Saturday, if you feel like lifting, lift. Otherwise, have a great weekend. For further help on those Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if you're a member of Dan John University, go in there and go to the workout generator, and just say that you just have kettlebells, and make those whole body workouts Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday. Do those more mobility kind of style workouts. They're usually a lot lighter. On those Tuesday and Thursday days, use the workout generator. So instead, if it says squats, don't do zerchers. Dial it back down to goblet squats, dial it back down to 6-point rocks, or any other variation that you find easy. If it says military press, you can dial it down to the wall-assisted, pike push-up or something like that. So make sure Tuesdays and Thursdays give you a little bit of energy, but don't take more out than what you get put in. And if there's one thing I always try to warn all, everybody is that you always need to recover between workouts. Most obvious thing I've ever said in my life. It's like when I say, if you want to get stronger, lift weights. But a lot of people miss that idea on recovery. You got to make sure you recover. When you're young, 35 is a good age. When you're young, even at 35, your recovery abilities are much higher than I am at 68. Okay, it's just a fact. I'm almost twice as old as you. I don't recover as fast as you will. Having said that, you're at 35 and you're not going to recover like you did in high school. So make sure that if you have a hard workout, yes, it's fine to have an easy recovery day off, don't train at all. Easy, tonic, smart recovery is going to help you. And the most important thing of all, make sure you can do a program that you can see yourself doing for a couple of decades. This is a little thing I'd like to share with everybody. I have a whole bunch of ideas. One is called NAGA, N-A-G-A. Not going to do that again. People ask me questions. Hey, Dan, do you want to do this? No, I'm not going to do that. And the other one is, the other kind of principle I have in my head is I'm not going to start doing something I can't see myself doing the rest of my life. Before the pandemic, I used to fast really hard, often monthly, sometimes just once every 3 months, where I would fast for 3 to 5 days. I don't do that anymore because I can't see myself doing that the rest of my life. I was doing this really good program, made great progress on it, where I mixed a hard workout with a really high protein meal with a 24-hour fast. Loved it. Got great benefits from it, but I can't see myself doing that the rest of my life because, and you can just, I was called a snowflake once online. I'm a snowflake. No one ever says that to me in person. But since I'm a snowflake, I just want to say this out loud. I'm a snowflake, and I just can't see myself fasting 24 hours for 24 hours twice a week. I intermittent fast. I do the daily fast every day. What a hero am I? I eat breakfast at 11 o'clock. It's not the hardest thing in the world. I'm basically a 2 meal a day guy. I got to make sure I keep my calories at a certain number, but keep my protein high. I can see myself doing that the rest of my life. Keeping my calories at a good level, keeping my protein high, training appropriately, and getting like the 10,000 steps in every day. So I hope that helped. I'm interested in seeing what you come up with. Let me know what you decide. Okay, we have a question from Jason. Jason says this: I hear Dan routinely mentioned his training group that works out with him throughout the week. Exactly. I am curious how Dan structures, scales, and plans that time. I also have a training group that meets at my home. We primarily do kettlebells and the bodyweight work. The skill range is quite broad. Oh, that's the hardest part. And I often find myself wondering how to structure the sessions to make it valuable for all the participants, myself included. Questions I often ask is, how do I incorporate new trainees without slowing down the rest of the group? Should we do a structured program or just individual workouts? I'd love to hear Dan's thoughts on how he approaches his training group, what structure and guidance he provides, and any lessons learned for someone wanting to do the same thing. So, Jason, this has evolved over the years. If I'm only going to do a workout group once a week, like, I think it's still up here. I think it's still behind. Yes, it is. So this is free online. It's funny when people put my stuff up on those illegal PDF spots because it's free. I don't know why. But this is the original. This is the Coyote Point Kettlebell Club. You can find this at danjohnuniversity.com. And it's just such a wonder. I just love this. I'm still so happy I did this. When Tiffany got transferred to the San Francisco field office right after my daughter graduated from college, and my other daughter graduated from high school, and then the next Monday we had to drive to California. That was stressful. When I got there, my good friend Dan Martin said, let's meet up and work out, and we did. And we started meeting every Tuesday. Now, if you're going to do it once a week in a park or however you do it, then I would recommend that you every day, every workout, everyone's at 0. Hi, I'm Dan. Hi, I'm Bob. I'm Sue. I'm Edna. You go around the group, you introduce yourselves, you ask how much experience they have. And then as a group, I would walk you through the mobility stuff. When we moved to the workout, we would have it scaled up between, something as simple as just a kettlebell deadlift to a snatch, depending on who you are, if we're doing a kettlebell group. Obviously, the Coyote Point Kettlebell Club was kettlebells. And we scaled it up like this. As I started to move to 2 to 3 to now 5, actually 6 days a week of a group meeting with me, that's when people had to start programming. So Mike Brown and I, we're doing a very specific program given to me by my coach. I have a very strong opinion that the person who coaches themselves has an idiot for an athlete. But it's true. So another person who trains with us all the time, Erica, she has a program slightly different. Older men and older women have slightly different training needs. Nothing outrageous, but slightly different. Nolan is a young man who trains with us, can only make it 2 days a week. We have a 2-day-a-week template for him. TJ can only make it 2 days a week. We do certain things differently with him. And then guests who show up, very often if a guest is showing up, instead of our workout starts at 9:30, I'll get out there at 8:30, get my workout done, pardon me, and then coach them up. There are issues with an open gym format. First off, some people show up and they ask me about, where's the swimming pool, Okay, that's a joke, but you get the point. They want me to have things I don't have. So the first kind of issue when you have guests coming is you just don't know their experience. You don't know if they understand equipment. Even people who are experienced we had a very famous lifter come not long ago, really good guy who didn't use certain pieces of equipment correctly. Now, I don't want to make a big deal out of it, but I'm a master kettlebell instructor, both for RKC and I've done Strong First in Belfast and London, just outside of London. For them, I've been to TRX workshops. I've done I've done hours of TRX work, being trained, and fit ranks, original strength. So we have a big, obviously, Olympic lifted for 50 years on the platform as an Olympic lifter, which is a long time, I guess 51 this year. So I have a lot of experience. So when I see someone doing something wrong, I got a coach. So you're going to have to kind of judge that yourself. Jason, I'm doing my best to answer the question. The nice thing is when you're truly working in an intentional community, people are all gathered, everybody's an assistant coach, everybody's a head coach, but everyone's also the newbie. If you add a new exercise, I have to learn it. I went to a workshop, I picked up this, you went to a workshop and picked up that. That's what you want to come out of it. We have some really good discussions, and I think that's why it keeps me, certainly, when I say young in this case, it doesn't mean I'm not 68 anymore. It keeps me young up here because I'm constant and never any improvement. The canny principle. I'm going to workshops, I'm getting corrected, I'm having people help me. In my gym, people will tell me that, you need to do this. Mike will get on me for the way I do military presses because, like every old gym rat, the first rep goes vertical, but if I get tired, I start leaning back. I'm almost doing vertical bench press, He corrects me, says, stop doing it. I fix it, and then, of course, come back a minute later and do it wrong again. But I think that's really the most important thing. Now, I do have more to share with you. I have a thing called the Inner Circle. It's a group that'll start up again in December. We meet every Wednesday. We talk, we go over things. And I got to tell you, if there's a secret to all this, Jason, it's that. You got to talk, you got to communicate, and you got to get better. So I know that wasn't my best answer. Grab the free book, danjohnuniversity.com. The price will remain free forever. Oh my gosh, the word armor building is in there. Huh. That's fun. It's amazing how deeply, how many levels there are to so many things I teach. I forget sometimes how long I've been working on certain concepts. Hey, I hope that helped. If you have follow-ups, get a hold of me. We can talk, okay? Thanks. Bye-bye. Okay, we got a question from Mike. I am 55 and train primarily with kettlebells 3 times per week, performing basic exercises like clean and press, rows, swings, and snatches. My knees have seen better days and allow me to squat once per week to every other week, regardless of volume and weight I'm forced by feel. When I am unable to squat, I will increase my cleans, do farmer walks, or barbell deadlifts. Mike, well, first I gotta just say this. I haven't yet answered the question, but I love the fact, I hope, gentle listener, you're listening. Just because he can't squat doesn't mean he can't work out. So he does more kettlebell cleans. He does more farmer walks. He does more barbell deadlifts. You got an issue here. We're gonna work around it. Man, you inspire me, and I like that. My question is, for a guy who's not any kind of competitive athlete, but walks, hikes, mountain bikes occasionally, and plays with his grandkids, are my squat alternatives suitable for an overall fitness program? Is there something I can add or that may be missing? Well, Mike, as you know, I'm a original strength practitioner. My good friend, Tim Anderson, who is just wonderful, taught me this at a workshop, 11, 12, 13, 14 years ago, something like that. And one of the things I'd like you to even consider, and now I'm sure that somebody is going to get angry, but I'd stop squatting if I were you. I mean, if you can only do it one or... Now listen, I invented the goblet squat. I love squatting. I think squatting has great value, but you can't do it. What you can do, if you can, is maybe get some cushions for your knees, get down the ground, I call it 6-point. Your hands, your knees, and your toes are dug in. I would put pads on your knees. Pillows are fine, whatever you got. I've got those big pads in the gym. We never use them. I also have mats. You could use those, whatever you got. And you're to get in that position, keep that chin high, keep the tongue in your roof of your mouth, and I want you to do rocking. Rocking is, I got to tell you, I think it's marvelous. I think it's one of the best things you can do. So all you're going to do, it's like squatting on your hands and knees. If you saw my granddaughter, Ellen, this last weekend, like I did, she'll stop when she's crawling sometimes, and then she'll start pumping. She'll start pumping like this. She's doing rocks. And then all of a sudden, whew, she'll take off again. I just want you to do that pumping, that rocking. I include it in every one of my books recently, I think. You can also go online to Tim Anderson's Original Strength. And if you have any more questions, type in Original Strength and then reach out. There might be a practitioner close to you who can teach this to you. If, and I'm hoping this is true, Mike, is if we give your knees a break in the weights for a while, do these rocks for a while. You keep doing the walking, the farmer walks, the deadlifts. Maybe in a little while, those knees will remember who they are, and we can bring you back into squatting. Personally, if I were you, I'd start off with assisted squats. You can either hang from a suspension trainer or hang from a doorknob or hang from a post, okay? And you put a lot of weight on there and you squat up and down. I think it's a great way to teach squatting, but by holding on and, counterbalancing, pulling some of the weight off, taking some of the load off the wheels, I think you might be able to get the movement of squatting, but not necessarily the, whatever it is, the pain or the aggravation or whatever it is on your wheels that's holding you back. listen, I think squats are important. Obviously, I mean, they're a fundamental movement. They're a game changer for some athletes, some sports. It is a key to keeping yourself young, but they also, some of us just get broken. So let's just go back to Elowen and rocking before she takes off for crawling. Over time, move up to those assisted squats. Over time, sneak into some less assisted squats, maybe a goblet squat with a counterbalance, and that might be all you ever need to do. Please don't take any of that for medical advice. That was my experience talking, in fact, in my own case, because my wheels got pretty damaged from all those years of not necessarily Olympic lifting, but the years throwing, especially the Highland Games, because they always seem to find fields that have holes in them. And, your ankles, that's why I started wearing high tops, is that I could get more support with my ankles because of all the holes in the field. If you're sprinting with a caber and step in a hole, it hurts all the way up. But you still got to flip the caber because that's the job. All right, great question, Mike. I hope that helped. Boy, we have had a great day today. We had a question from a guy named Daniel, and now a guy named John. This is pretty exciting. In the 90s, I was doing a full body workout once a week based on listen names approach and doing a warm-up and 2 sets to failure. This is when I was in prison and we didn't have much to do, so we would really go all out. This included 2 deadlift sets, which now I think was pretty dumb. Yeah, but hey, we all learn. And I would inevitably get very sore in my low back and spinal erectors. I did this workout for several years and got this response repeatedly, except for once. And this is an interesting thing. That's why I want to. The day after one of my workouts, I attended a day-long Zen meditation group. Our meditation was done on a cushion, and I had to focus on the spine being erect and activated, but not straining. Posture is very big in this approach, and I did the practice most days for about 30 minutes or so. This day, we would sit on the cushion most of the day, broken up by walking, meditation, and a few short breaks. My back was a little sore. It would usually take a day or so until most of the soreness was gone. But by the end of the day, the soreness was gone and it never developed. To me, there seems to be a connection, but I can't think of a mechanism that would account for my experience. I want to see if you had any ideas. And if you had the time to answer this, I would greatly appreciate it. Well, John, first off, thank you for this question. So, John, I have an absolute. It's one of the biggest things in my coaching, and it's funny because I was just talking about this book a few days ago. Sorry for turning away that all the time, but it's a guy by the name of John Jerome. He wrote a book called Staying Supple, and if you read the book, and it's out of print, and he's no longer with us, but you realize as you read the book that a whole bunch of people who invented them after John Jerome invented them. And it's a wonderful book. And one of the things he talks about, and it became a foundational thing in my coaching, the body is one piece. Now, I usually use this to talk about strength training. If you broke up with your girlfriend or something horrible happened in your life, might not be a good day to max out on the Olympic snatch because, your emotions are part of your whole body. I have found in my life an interesting thing, sound mind and a sound body. It's absolutely true. And we're going to get that. We'll loop back to this. I didn't make that up. I'm not hiding anything, but, I went through look at me already starting to touch things. I went through a tough couple of years there. And while I was going through a tough couple of years, people began to notice that I had always how blotchy and how red my face was all the time. Well, my face was red because I was under a lot of stress. And my body responded by reddening up. It's interesting because a lot of the weight I've lost, I'm pretty convinced is just that I did this. I relaxed. I'm not under the stress I was for so long. the body's one piece, the body's one piece, the body's one piece. Now, obviously, you did mention the prison thing too. The stress that you would be under in prison, and I don't know what kind of prison you were. I used to do prison ministry, and one of the first things you learn is that there's prison, and then there's prison, and then there's prison, and they're all different. When you're in one part of the Utah State Prison, you don't sleep well for a few days. And when you're in another part, you feel like you're at a Club Med. Not so much at the Utah State Prison. But the stressors of prison life and the stressors of the program you were doing probably danced a little bit and caused a whole bunch of other issues. Then you go to this class and you begin to re-knit your relationship with your body, mind, soul, and spirit. I do think that is a factor. Interesting thing happened. I've noticed this in my life. When my physical life is in order, my fiscal, financial life seems to be in order. It reminds me of something a story Earl Nightingale used to tell. And just let me tell the story. I think it ties in. A guy was trying to watch a football game on TV, and his son kept bothering him. So he gets some peace of mind. He took out a picture in the newspaper, and he cut it up, and he gave his son some Scotch tape, and he said, "I want you to put together this guy's face." And so very quickly, the son shows up, and the guy's face looks pretty good for the kid's 4 years old, whatever, putting together. And he goes, "Wow, that's a pretty good job, son. How did you do it?" He goes, "Well, Dad, on the back, I noticed that there was a world. And when the world was in order, the man was in order." I've always liked that story. I don't know if it's true or not, but I love the story. And I'll tell you why I love the story is the body's one piece. So when this you all know, every listener knows somebody who's, got it going on the financial side, but is literally one step from a heart attack. You know somebody who's in great physical shape, but they live, the old joke, they live in their mom's basement, and mom, meatloaf or whatever, whatever it is. I like to have all aspects of my life kind of locked in. Right next to me, as most of my listeners know, I have a sauna. And when I sauna, I do original strength some days, but the other days I put on meditative music and I just try to enjoy the quiet. I will listen to guided meditations. And when I'm taking care of my sauna, my meditations, my financial health, I am debt-free. I pay my bills. Well, I'm always way ahead on, I don't have any bills, but the power bill and the electricity, whatever they are, the gas bill, all that stuff is taken care of. I don't even think about it. I have an emergency fund. I'm debt-free. I have money for these big vacations coming up in my life. I stay way ahead on my home repairs. When I stay way ahead of my home repairs and my house is clean and neat, I seem to eat better, make better liquid choices, and I sleep better. When I sleep better, I tend to wake up refreshed in the morning and make better calorie choices. When I make better calorie choices, I tend to walk better. You see how it goes. The body is one piece, the body's one piece, the body's one piece. My thought on this, and I could be wrong, John, is that what you did is very simply, you re-knitted yourself back together. And remember, gentle listeners, the word fit, F-I-T, comes from the Old Nordic to knit. And I've always thought, one of the things I've always strived for in my life is to be a well-knitted person. A couple times a month, I wear a tuxedo because I go to these musical events. I'm no musician. My understanding of music is, at best, weak, but I try to be well-knitted. I try to stay well-read. I try to have good connection with my family and friends. I try to be generous as I can be in all areas of my life. To me, that's what a well-knitted person is. It's more than just trying to win internet battles and all the rest. John, that was a marvelous question, and I hope things are going well for you. And if if that doesn't seem to be enough of an answer, send me a little note and we'll go in deeper. Hey, that was fun. I enjoyed these questions today. Somebody asked me if I get a lot of repeat questions, and before I even had a chance to react, I went, ha! Like that. Yes, but today was original. It was fun. Again, if you have questions, please send them to the podcast at danjohnuniversity.com. Each and every week I sit in this chair, unless I'm on the road, and answer your questions. And until next time, let's keep on lifting and learning. Thank you.